Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of week again. Everybody's favorite segment here, the power rankings. Just gonna jump pretty much into it, but before I do, I just want to thank everyone that participated in last week's video about last week's power rankings, smashing that like button. I created that extra video that I promised. I broke down kind of what I felt so far in April has been the biggest surprises. So if you haven't seen that yet, I'll link it at the end of this video as the pop-up, and I will put it in the description below. So make sure you check that out and let me know what your biggest surprises are so far this season. But let's jump into it. The bottom is pretty much going to stay the same here, and it's the Oakland A's. What can I say? The A's are on pace to be the worst team in all of MLB history. So you probably got to be the worst team so far in the year, if that's going to be you. They managed to pull out a couple wins this week, though, 1-3 against the Angels. So nice little win there. And they had a come-from-behind win today against the Reds. So 2 wins. If they keep putting up 2 wins a week, they're not going to be the worst team in MLB. So at least a little bit trending in the right direction. Number 29, Kansas City Royals, 1-2 against Arizona. 1-3 against Minnesota. And guys, this team is also potentially in the mix for worst team in the MLB. So these two teams, they haven't played each other yet. That'd be pretty much an exciting series to watch, right? But a lot of talk going on with the A's. All the ownership drama, all that. At least Kansas City kind of falling under the radar, and I'm not hearing a lot of talk about them, what's going on for them this season. Not really tuning into their games. Next up, we got the Colorado Rockies. They had a winning series, kicked the week off 2-1 against Cleveland. Feeling all right, but then they go 1-2 against Arizona. Pretty much cementing to me bottom of this division. The rest of the way, Giants seem to have took a couple steps forward. At least they were in the bottom row, working their way out. Arizona, we've seen them have a good year so far. Colorado's cementing themselves at the bottom, and long rebuild ahead of them, it looks like. A lot of competition in this conference, so we'll see how they turn out. 26, Washington Nationals, 2-1 against the Mets, and then 1-2 against Pittsburgh. So a 500 week, but the Washington Nationals, to me, have shown that they're pretty competitive in most of their games. But they did get the beat down a couple of times over the weekend against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh put up double digits twice against them. The offense was fire. So the depth is definitely lacking for Washington. They're going to be last in this division. No question about it. Number 26, I think the lowest I've ever ranked them. 0-3 against Toronto. And luckily, they broke their double-digit losing streak today against Tampa Bay, going 1-3 in the series against them. White Sox are a disaster. I don't know how they turn it around. I don't know how they can really compete in the conference. The division, they're going to compete because they got worse teams than them, and we're going to get to the next team right in front of them, number 25. But the White Sox, a lot of work to do, and they're trending in the wrong direction. Whereas Detroit's starting to get a little bit better. They had a winning series against Milwaukee at the beginning of the week. They've played some of these top teams very tough. But then they have a series against the Orioles, and they lose that one. So Detroit, we don't really see them having a shot at the playoffs. Just too many times they're not in an opportunity to have a chance at a sweep, let alone win a series. So they got a lot of work to do. They're a rebuilding team. A lot going on, a lot of moving parts. They're going to be one we're going to be looking for in the future. Number 24, very low. These guys just keep crashing. 1-3 against San Francisco. 0-3 against the Dodgers. I had high hopes for this St. Louis team. Early in the season when they beat my Toronto Blue Jays, I was like, all right, this team has the firepower. The pitching's a little questionable, but the Jays off offense, so I'm not going to hold it too much. And ever since then, it's just been series lost after series lost, bottom of the National League Central, and a big hole to dig out of. I think I talked about how they might have a shot to win the division still. I don't even know if that's possible. It's April. I know they had some rough starts in the past couple of years and managed to turn it around. But this is, I think, the biggest hole that they've dug so far. And this division is stronger than it's been those prior years. So Cardinals are in a world of hurt. Number 23, moving up a couple of spots, San Francisco Giants. 3-1 against the Cardinals, just hit on that. And then they went to Mexico City in the home run derby, 11 home run game that we saw yesterday. And they lost again today. So they went 0-2, not too much weight in that division matchup against a team that's expected to be better than them in a foreign country. Not going to hold too much, but they move up a couple of spots. I think matching up against all these teams lower than them, I'm going to take San Francisco at least now. Number 22, we got the Miami Marlins. 1-3 against Atlanta and then sweeping the Cubs. This team is unpredictable. One thing that is for sure is they're overperforming analytics-wise. They're around 500 as a team, but if you look at what their expected wins, their expected runs, all those things are, they're performing way too high, and there would be expected to be much worse record based on those statistics. So I think what we see on paper, what we see them from an eagle eye view as a team is more in reality to what the record is. Hence why I got them at 22. I still think they're a long way from competing in this division. Number 21, they're starting to look a little hot, red hot, some people might say. 3-0 against Texas. I would have loved to see them sweep the A's. They blew it a little bit. They were down, they came back, they blew it. The Reds go 2-1 against the A's, a 5-1 week, so a pretty solid week. And as I was kind of digging deeper into the schedule so far this year, kind of noticed the Reds have had one of the tougher schedules in the MLB, playing more teams above 500 than pretty much anyone else. And they're almost 500, so I'm going to give them a little bit more credit. We could see this team as a closet surprise to start making some progress. I don't know if they have the depth, but of all the divisions that I think are up for grabs, I think it's this one. Number 20, not looking good this week. 1-2 against Philly, 1-2 against Toronto. They're on a road trip to Toronto. They're on a road trip to Philly. It's a little tough coming to the East Coast on that. But Seattle's got to win some of these series. They got to go 500. You're not making the playoffs this year as the Seattle Mariners unless you're playing 550 baseball. And right now, I don't see it. And they have a lot of work to do. Texas is no longer that rollover team that was in their division for the past number of years that catapulted them into a chance to win the division. Right now, I have them as the odd man looking out in that division. Of course, other than the A's, but they're way behind. 19, got the Cleveland Guardians. Losing week 1-2 against Colorado, 1-2 against Boston. And we talked about it last week, kind of from this part was very tight. So a 2-4 week dropped Cleveland, I think 7 or 8 spots. Just because I don't see it anymore. We saw them make the playoffs last year. The Twins were injured. The Twins kind of performed way under expectation, and they barely snuck into the playoffs this year. This year we have a team that seems to be strong in the Twins, and a Guardians team that isn't performing like they were last year. Not as strong, it feels like. So I kind of feel in the playoff type race of things, Cleveland has dropped out a bit more than anyone else this past week. 18, moving up a couple of spots. We got Boston, 1-2 against Baltimore, 2-1 against Cleveland. Boston's just hanging around, playing tough baseball against the opponents. So far, they've lost both series to Baltimore, which really hurts because most people think Baltimore, I think, is number 4 in the division, which if you're losing both of those, you're going to be number 5. So Boston has 4 teams to hop over in this division. Still a long way to be talking about them being in the playoffs, but right now, match them against all these teams below them, I feel like they're going to pound them. The offense has been right there. They're giving up a lot of runs, though. Big concern. 17, Arizona, 2-1 against KC, 2-1 against Colorado. So Arizona's doing what I talk about with these teams that have started out strong. Continue to play strong baseball and beat the teams that are below you. And they did that this week. Allows them to move up a couple of spots. And if they want to keep it going, we're going to have to roll that into some win streaks. We're going to have to roll that into some big division wins against the Padres, the Dodgers, and other teams that are going to be in the wild card race. Arizona is one of those teams I'm keeping my eye closely on right now because I know I've taken a lot of heat for having them ranked so low. 16, we got the Angels. 3-1 against the A's, taking care of business there, and then losing to the Brewers over the weekend. Angels kind of fluttering along and not doing anything to talk them out of the conversation, but also not doing anything to elevate their chances of, hey, these guys are real contenders. They're just kind of average right now, and I'm waiting for something to pop with these Angels. They're either going to go under what they've done the past number of years, losing streaks, falling apart, someone get injured or something, or they might go on a little bit of a tear. So keep an eye on the Angels. They're one of those I can't put my finger on just yet. Number 15, moving up a couple of spots, 2-1 against the Dodgers, 2-1 against the the Nationals over the weekend, and looking ahead next week, they got the Jays and the Rays. So that is going to be the week where I really start to figure out Pittsburgh, I think. I've taken a lot of heat on Pittsburgh because I've had them kind of floating in here the whole season. I wasn't ready to move them up too much. We saw their offense really come alive. They're maybe plus 50 run differential right now, but I'm not ready. They have only had, I think it's 9 games against teams above 500. So this next week is going to be very telling if the depth of their team can match up against a back-to-back series like the Rays and the Jays. If they can come out there with 500, maybe a winning record, I'm going to be a lot more serious about Pittsburgh being the real contender for this division. I know they're on top. I get it, but it's a long season, and I'm not sold yet on Pittsburgh. Number 14, Baltimore, 2-1 against Boston, 3-1 against Detroit. I think their winning percentage is like .650, so if you're looking strictly at standings, you're going to be a little like, why are they so low? A lot of that has to do with their schedule has just been one of the easiest in MLB so far this season. So I think 3 weeks ago, I talked about how they had to be .650 by the end of April if they're going to be real contenders for the playoffs. This is a tough American League East. So if you're not picking up the wins against the Detroits like they did, against the Oaklands like they did, against the White Sox like they did, I think, you're not going to be in the hunt. So they're in the hunt. Now it's time to see them go ahead. They have a tough couple of weeks now against teams right here in the middle. They've got to prove that this is their spot. They're going to be playing Pittsburgh. They're going to be playing the Angels. I know they play the Jays coming up. Like, these are the series that are going to define them if they're a top 10 baseball team or not. And that's what Baltimore fans, all they want to see is them play meaningful games, and they are. Number 13, we got the Cubs. 2-1 against San Diego before getting swept by the Marlins. Put the Cubs up quite far pretty quickly in the season just because I liked what they had on paper. I liked their rotation, I liked their bats, but since then it's been like unpredictable. They win a tough series and then they get swept by the Marlins in a series where they have to at least take one if they're going to be in this conversation. I still think they're a top team though. I think they have what it takes to win this division, and it's going to start coming down to when they play the Pirates, when they play the Brewers. It's going to be tough, and they're going to be right there fighting the whole way, I think. It's one of those teams that maybe I'm overselling on early, and then we're going to have to readjust. Number 12. I think coming into this season, if you told me they were going to be this low, I would have lied. But they went 1-2 against Minnesota, then 1-3 against Texas. So they're losing to all the teams that are ahead of them. So with that, as well as the injuries they've kind of suffered, I've got a little cool on the New York Yankees. They got 2 teams in the Rays and the Jays ahead of them that are going to make it very tough for them to have a repeat division lead that they had last year. So Yankees got a lot of work to do right now. They're in last place in the division. People are got to be concerned. They have a chance of missing the playoffs here. Wouldn't surprise me at this point. Number 11. We got the LA Dodgers. 1-2 against Pittsburgh and then laid the beat down on the Cardinals. So Pittsburgh played Dodgers super well. A lot of credit to them there. Dodgers still kind of shuffling this season. I'm not ready to write them off as an out-of-playoff team. I think they're still very strong, and they're going to pick up some wins against the weaker side of their division, as well as play the tough teams that they do play, like the Padres, really tough. So they're going to be a tough team to beat the whole season, and for that, I still have them at number 11. Number 10, moving up a couple of spots. 2-1 against Seattle. 2-0 so far against Houston, of course. You know, we film these power rankings while the Sunday Nighters going on. They're playing Houston right now for Game 3. But they got a little bit of revenge from the World Series last year. They're starting to get their roll. They had a very poor start. Maybe I dropped them a little early, but I kind of held them near the top because we knew there was a couple injuries that they're dealing with in their lineup, some key players. Bryce Harper being out for the beginning of the season there. And now they're starting to win. They have a lot of trouble. This is a tough division, and right now I have them in 3rd in the division. So they're going to have a tough road ahead of them for playoffs, repeat World Series appearances. But they're right there in the thick of it. Number 9, San Diego Padres, 1-2 against the Cubs, 2 against San Fran. Not a lot to say. It's kind of a meh week for the Padres, and they continue to be kind of meh and underperforming. Some of their big guys just aren't doing what they're thought they were going to do, but their free agent signings are like Bogart's just been monster for them. So I think they're going to figure it out. They have a lot of talent here, and it's just a little bit of a struggle. I think they have what it takes. Might be the lowest we see them go. Number 8, Texas Rangers, 3-0 against the White Sox before beating the Yankees this season or this weekend, and they really beat the Yankees hard today. Texas has shown that this offense is legit. A little bit of concern with DeGrom going down this week, going down to a little bit of an IL and an elbow issue, so a little bit of concern there because that was a big part of what their rotation depth was about and why I was really pro them. But they're in there, and they're showing that they're strong. And you got to start giving them credit as a top 10 team for sure. Number 7, we got the Twins. 2-1 against the Yankees, 3-1 against Kansas City. They're doing all right. I like what the Twins are setting themselves up for, a good season. They've had some tough. They haven't had an easy schedule. It's been like above average on who they're playing. They're taking care of some of these teams like the Yankees now. And then they take care of division. We could see this team be the second or probably the second best record in the American League, just merely because they're going to play so many games against the weaker division. And I think they're going to kind of walk away with this division at this point. So that kind of edges them out above Texas in my eyes. Number 6, Toronto Blue Jays, 3-0 against the White Sox, 2-1 against the Mariners. Jays look good this weekend. They kind of blew the game today, and sure, they were winning 5 in a row at that point already. Would have been nice to see them win that 6th in a row. But the Jays they're showing that they're there. I'm not ready to make them a top 5 team. I want to see them beat teams like the Astros, which they didn't beat coming up. They're going to have to play the Rays. They're going to have to play the Yankees again. I want to see how they do against Baltimore and Boston. Like, these teams are going to be tough. They have a tough schedule. So it's going to be hard for me to put them top 5 if they're not really a division contender. And right now, the Rays, I think, still have a little bit of an edge on them. Number 5. Got the Houston Astros, 2-1 against Tampa, 0-2 against Philly. So I get a lot of hate that the Astros are still top row. That's fine. They're World Series champs. Their roster's relatively the same for the most part. Maybe they lost Verlander. Depth is maybe not quite as good, but they are dealing with an injury. They do have some young guys stepping up, and they've just kind of been inconsistent. But I don't think that's a strike against them. You're going to have parts of a season where you're going to go inconsistent as a top team. Happens all the time. It's better to get it over with in April. We'll see if this keeps going, this inconsistency, for another week or two, and then we're going to have to start talking about, okay, Texas is the best team in this division. Sure, I know Texas won the series. They played each other. That was beginning of the season. Let's get some depth into this Texas team. We haven't seen Texas play this kind of important baseball in a long time, whereas Houston, this is the kind of story they do every year. It seems like last year, definitely, they were pretty much neck and neck for the division lead for a long time, and then they just pulled away. So that's kind of where I see this going again. So I'm going to keep them in number 5. Number 4, same spot. I'm not going to hold too much against them this week. They only played 4 games, 1-2 against Washington, and 0-1 against Atlanta. Like, Atlanta and them rain delays are going to play back-to-back tomorrow. So I wasn't really going to move them based off this week. Sure, they lost to Washington's one series. Washington's a division rival. Not holding them too much. Number 3, Milwaukee Brewers, 1-2 against Detroit, 2-1 against the Angels. This is really tough, honestly. I know my power rankings are a little weird when it comes between like the top 10. Like, you could, based on all sorts of things, you could kind of mix it around. I think the Brewers are set up in a way where they can match up against any team, especially the top teams. Their pitching rotation is stellar. They have 2 aces that are just going to lock you down all the time. And their bats, they can get it done. Mind you, they're not scoring at will like some of these other teams. So maybe when we see them play some of these high-power offenses, might change my opinion on them. But right now, I kind of like the way the Brewers are set up for a long season and a long playoff push, potentially. Number 2, we got Atlanta Braves, 3-1 against Miami, 1-0 against the Mets, and they're definitely threatening for that top spot. They just keep rolling, and they're in a tough division. But I just could not dethrone the number 1 Rays just yet. They lost to Houston to start the week, so that was their second series loss. We know they're not invincible, but coming in and taking care of business against the White Sox. Their offense continues to just mash. I think against any team, any series, I'm going to be putting a little bit of an edge on Tampa Bay. Maybe Atlanta's starting to threaten for that spot, where I might consider Atlanta. But those two teams for me are by far the top two. I don't think there's much debate about that. You might start to debate when you start getting further down. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. We will see you for that next video.